During the First Tiberian War, the forces of the GDI and the Brotherhood of NOD deployed a variety of soldiers and vehicles, along with tactics and strategies, to achieve superiority over the other on the battlefield. Although it may not seem like it, both forces possessed, in some cases, the same units or vehicles because they borrowed certain plans. Stole them, more the GDI from NOD than the other way around, since, in most cases, it was NOD who innovated in this aspect, or they shared the same manufacturer, and some vehicles were from the Cold War era, that is, from Red Alert 1. At the beginning of its creation, after the Cold War, the GDI was another organization of the UN, under the control of the United Nations Security Council, with the same purpose of being an armed force to maintain peace. However, when Tiberium emerged in the 90s, the GDI became the most important in maintaining control and surveillance of this mineral, and over those who wanted to possess it, eventually gaining the support of the UN and its member countries. But all this changed when the First Tiberian War broke out, caused by the Brotherhood of NOD, who had revealed themselves to the world and their intentions. The GDI was deployed to combat them, as it was the largest military force that could confront them, due to the arsenal they possessed and the tactics they deployed on the battlefield, including financial support from the UN. The war tactic or doctrine that the GDI uses, and continues to use to this day, is total dominance or superiority in the aspects of war, that is, having control of all dimensions of physical space, or rather, having better weapons, better soldiers, vehicles, planes, etc., including the technological development of the same to be above the threats they face. The Brotherhood of NOD is organized in a very simple way, like a pyramid. At the top is Cain, the supreme leader of the organization, who has absolute power. Below him is a small group known as the Inner Circle, selected by Cain himself due to their great devotion and loyalty to the Brotherhood. They hold power within the organization and are able to direct its operations, which include the military, economic, scientific and religious areas. Remember that it is a militarized sect. Even with all this, the Inner Circle, in most cases, does not get along well among its members, as a certain rivalry is encouraged between them to form better leaders, which, in the future, leads to certain problems, including civil wars for the control of the Brotherhood. Except when Cain is in charge, in that case, they usually put aside their differences to fulfill the vision of the Prophet. Unlike the GDI and their brute force tactics, i.e. an onslaught of the best tanks, soldiers and aircraft well equipped with the highest technology available, which involves a lot of resources and money, the Brotherhood of NOD uses guerrilla, sabotage and stealth tactics. Let's say that NOD does not have the vast amount of resources that the GDI has, so their vehicles or armor lack the same firepower compared to the GDI's, but they make up for it with greater mobility, maneuverability and speed, as well as being cheaper to produce in large quantities. The same could also be said of the Nodite infantry, as they do not have the same equipment or training as the GDI, but are deployed in large numbers with a fanatical faith that makes up for it. However, the war doctrine that was most used and implemented by the Brotherhood of NOD was propaganda and disinformation, widely used against the GDI and very effective on most occasions, causing the civilian population itself to turn against them. Let's start with the GDI. First, let's talk about the infantry. The GDI has a variety of specialized and well-trained units for combat, such as the minigunners, who possess a GAU-3 eliminator, identical in performance to regular 5.56mm assault rifles, and other combat rifles, although these are not shown in gameplay. The grenadiers, although it could also be said that the infantry carries grenades as standard equipment for when the enemy is covered or in a building. Here some units carry even more grenades, but oh well, gameplay. When the situation becomes complicated by the arrival of enemy armor or aircraft, the rocket launcher units are deployed, effective against them and against buildings. In addition, by possessing a guidance system, they can act as an anti-aircraft emplacement. Finally, the Commando is the best trained and outstanding unit of both factions, deployed in precision attacks against key targets. He has a 12.7mm .50 antimaterial rifle with a silencer and C44 buildings. I know he's shown using a shotgun in the picture and that the .50 doesn't do damage to vehicles, which is weird since the .50 can damage light vehicles, but that's just gameplay stuff. The Humvee is the reconnaissance, transport, although the gameplay again does not show it, and support vehicle for the infantry's advance and retreat. It is equipped with the M60, effective against infantry and light vehicles. It is a widely used and popular vehicle on the battlefield, and to this day it is still used for its versatility and utility in the Yellow Zone. The The APC, or Armored Personnel Carrier, better known as Armored Personnel Carrier, is a tracked armored vehicle designed to transport soldiers through active war zones. Although lightly armed, the APC is durable and fast thanks to the alloys used for its armor, allowing it to penetrate enemy defensive lines and take its occupants where they are needed. Like the Humvee, it has the M60 mounted on its platform for infantry support and deployment. The medium tank, or M1 Abrams, because it looks like an M1 Abrams, is the backbone of the GDI's armored division. With its 105mm gun, it is effective against light tanks and NOD defensive structures. Although it may not seem like it, the medium tank has a Browning M2, M249 or M60 to deal with infantry, but again, for gameplay reasons it is not shown. In the Second Tiberium War, they were replaced by a bipedal Walker, which ultimately proved to be not very effective. GDI Super Heavy Tank, the Mammoth Mk.I, is armed with two 120mm guns and two Mammoth Tusk anti-aircraft and anti-infantry missile pods. They are also equipped to perform limited battlefield repairs independently. If you're wondering why they look so similar to the Apocalypse tanks from Red Alert 1, I'd say that after the Cold War, some scientists and blueprints went to the Allies, and when the First Tiberium War broke out, they were used against NOD. They are powerful, expensive, but worth the price, including being part of the GDI's warfighting doctrine. They were later replaced by an ATAR-type Walker, and you know what happened to them. The M270 Multiple Launch Rocket System, MLRS, also known simply as the Rocket Launcher, is based on the American M270 Multiple Launch Rocket System. GDI's multiple rocket launchers are effective against infantry and vehicles, though somewhat less effective against NOD aircraft, and against buildings or defensive structures. They are not recommended, since they are at the limit of the firing range. Another vehicle inherited from the Cold War and the Soviets is the half-track chassis of the Inhibitor and the prototype Tisla tank, which was later used as a mobile headquarters in case the MCV was not available. And finally, on the ground side, the Mobile Construction Vehicle, MCV, was slow and rugged because it had to contain the combined resources of manpower, computer resource management, and cutting-edge robotics, for the time, to coordinate and unpack the elements needed to create the structures for both sides.
GDI building captured.
The CH-47 Chinook was a versatile transport helicopter that saw over 30 years of use by both the GDI and NOD during the First Tiberium War. It could carry infantry, supplies, and armored vehicles. Unfortunately, after the war, it was discontinued and dismantled by both sides in favor of their own versions. The Orca assault craft is a multipurpose support gunship of the Global Defense Initiative. It has two engines capable of high speed, accompanied by maneuverability that allows it to dodge anti-aircraft missiles most of the time. However, it is lightly armored and compact, making it vulnerable to 1 to 2 missile hits, and it can only carry a single passenger. Although it is very effective against all units and structures, except anti-aircraft defenses. Lastly, about the A-10, I'll just say, if you're listening to this, you're not its target. As you know, NOD deploys a large number of poorly trained soldiers, with little equipment, and simple and cheap vehicles, which makes them easy to produce. NOD's infantry may not be well equipped with good weapons, although they use the same weapon, the GAU-3 Eliminator, or other weapons at their disposal, equipment or training as the GDI, but they make up for it with unsurpassed faith and fanaticism. However, they do have some units that stand out and differentiate themselves from each other. One of the units that stand out is the flamethrower, useful for clearing buildings and eliminating infantry easily, although the range of this must be very close, and the fact that, when it dies, or rather, when the tank is hit, it explodes and affects allies. Another unit that fulfills a similar role is the Chemical Warrior, which unlike the Flamethrower, uses corrosive-grade Tiberium, effective against infantry, light vehicles and structures, although it is also just as fragile as the Flamethrower. After the First War, they were no longer used until after the Third War. The Engineer and the Commando serve the same role, so there are no changes. Also, NOD does not have grenadiers. The buggy is the vehicle used by NOD in its reconnaissance, infantry attack, escort, patrol, and ambush missions. Unlike its GDI counterpart, which uses an M60, the buggy can be equipped with light machine guns such as the M240 or similar. The Raptor Recon Bike is a lightly armored motorcycle equipped with 2 Dragon tow missile launchers and 4 forward-facing light machine guns, although the gameplay does not adequately reflect this. Although very powerful, the Recon Bike has almost no armor to maintain its speed, consisting of a single-piece armor plate and a plexiglass windshield mounted over the front wheel. It is designed to be used for reconnaissance and support of NOD units against armored and air targets. The M2 Bradley was originally an American infantry fighting vehicle, developed to meet the growing need and proven effectiveness of such vehicles. Originally it was equipped with a 25mm autocannon and tow missiles to attack tanks. However, the most recent version of the Bradley family of vehicles is a light tank used exclusively by the Brotherhood of NOD, sacrificing troop carrying capability for a 75mm light tank gun that is marginally effective against heavy armor, while retaining speed and maneuverability. The Flamethrower tank is an experimental multipurpose weapon developed by the Brotherhood of NOD around the time of the First Tiberian War. The first generation of the NOD Flamethrower tank series, in terms of destructive firepower, cannot even be compared to the merely controversial ones. The resulting tank is a fast, versatile, and nightmarish weapon, dangerous to both infantry and buildings, but also lightly armored and highly volatile, taking everything with it or burning horribly in the blast radius when destroyed, including allies. The results were really good. Post-war, it was replaced by an underground variant. One of the most important advancements NOD has implemented was the cloaking system on its vehicles, and one of them was the stealth tank with the ability to launch homing missiles. However, it must disable its cloaking system because it cannot recalculate the changing characteristics of the launchers during firing, meaning it does not aim well while invisible. In addition, it has light armor, making it vulnerable to anti-tank weaponry and armored vehicles of the same role. Cain named the cloaking system Lazarus Shield, and the track set Ezekiel's Wheel, after the vision of the biblical prophet. After the war, it was improved, but the problem of aiming and camouflage still persisted. The artillery piece that bears a resemblance to the M110 howitzer was salvaged from storage since World War II, though if Red Alert 1 is canon, that event never happened, with modifications and upgrades to be relevant in modern warfare, effective against almost any unit and structure sheltered by walls, but inaccurate and accompanied by light armor. After the First Tiberian War, new versions of artillery pieces were created. Another artillery piece used in World War I was the Surface-to-Surface Missile (SSM) launcher, a mobile surface-to-surface missile system used by NOD. Using the successful MLRS frame and replacing the rocket pods with 2 large Honest John missiles on special launch racks, the SSM launcher is a mobile surface-to-surface missile system that can cause massive damage to infantry and structures from extreme distance, complementing NOD's conventional artillery. SSM launchers fell out of use when the Second Tiberian War began, while NOD's conventional artillery had greatly advanced. And finally, the mobile headquarters that serves the same function as the GDIs. The Chinook served the same function for both sides, but unlike GDI, which replaced it with a better one, NOD replaced it with a more subterranean method. Due to legal issues with Boeing Defense, Space and Security, it can no longer be called the Apache, but rather the Rapid Response Helicopter. Although it has missiles, in gameplay it only uses the rotary machine gun against infantry and light armor. It was later replaced with an improved version. This ends the First Tiberian War, but fortunately for us, there are still 2 more wars to go. Bad luck for them. See you next time in 30 years. Yes, the Second Tiberian War happened 30 years later.